Hey, any of you boomers remember that little ditty? That was from the television series The Odd Couple theme song. If you're old enough to know that, you are old enough to be here on Boomer Island. This is the Boomer Island Podcast. Welcome ashore, friends. All right. Welcome ashore. Thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate you. I truly do. And I really hope you're healthy, and I really hope you're happy. That's no bullshit. I hope so. Please be feeling well today as you listen to this. Anyway, talking about The Odd Couple. Loved that one back in the day. Do you guys remember that one? I think it was a play first or a movie by Neil Simon, one or the other, or both. And then they turned it into a television series, and that's where I caught up to it, starring Jack Klugman and Jack Lemmon. They were two friends that both got divorced and moved in together, and they were polar opposites. One was a neat freak, always dressed snazzy. I don't even know. He was Felix Unger. That was Jack Lemmon's character. Not sure what he did for a living, but I remember Klugman had he was a sports writer, and he was just a slob, cigar-smoking dude. Rappers everywhere in his room, and quite the comedy. Really enjoyed it. So that had to do with roommates. That's what I'm talking about today. Remember a few other ones of our generation back in the day when you have to tune in, see you same time next week. You know, you had to sit down at 7, 8, or whatever it was and watch the dang show. We had Three's Company, Come and Knock on Our Door. That was where Jack Tripper, the famous actor John Ritter, rest his soul, and Suzanne Summers, who was quite the sex symbol of the time, and Joyce DeWitt, I think was her name, was Janet, Chrissy, and Jack, I think they call him, Jack Tripper. Did I already say that? You know, hey, sometimes I repeat myself. But anyway, they were all living together. Whoo! Good time for the tripster. But I think he had to act gay so he could get the lease or something. I don't remember the total premise. I do remember it was hilarious. You had the landlord was Mr. Roper and Mrs. Roper, and those were good times. Any of these titles ringing a bell? Odd Couple, Three's Company, and another one that I didn't watch a lot of. It was called Bosom Buddies, and that starred Tom Hanks, and I can't remember the other fella. But they had to pretend that they were females so they could get rent in a all-woman's apartment. And that was kind of the springboard for Hank's superstardom. You know, so the story goes. And the rest, as they say, is history. So anyway, there's been a bunch of roommate-type shows. You know, Friends had a couple roommates in there, I guess. I don't think Seinfeld did. But roommates, that's what I'm talking about today on Boomer Island, because there is a boom, as it were, of senior citizens moving in with each other. And I want to go over that a little bit today with you. Sound interesting, boomers? Are you into it? Do you have a roommate? Are you thinking about getting a roommate and all the reasons for it and some reasons against, perhaps? So think about all the roommates you've had in your life, you know. Might have started off when you were just, you know, with your family. Maybe you had 2 brothers in your room or whatever it might be. And then as you move out, if you went to college, you most assuredly probably had a roommate in a dorm, or the first time you just spread your wings and flew the nest. I know all through my 20s, basically, till I got married, I had a roommate because it was necessary financially, and you just wanted that camaraderie. And we all know the difficulty that goes with that, the challenges and the good times. There's a give and take there. Fine-edged sword. Is that the word? Fine-edged sword, I think, is the term. So you learn a lot about people. You know, they could be your best buddy, but when you're start sharing an apartment together, things change, and you realize that there's a lot of little nuances with having a roommate. And then eventually, maybe you get married or you move in with a significant other that you fall in love with, and your roommate's there, and hopefully you're more than roommates. And some of you, though, as you're married long enough, you become roommates again. You go lovers back to roommates to whatever. I think most of our lessons are probably in negative things we learn through our roommates. Think for a moment, if you will, about all the great times you've had with your roommates. They were a blessing. Great to have them there when you need them. You just might have had the greatest roommates of all time. But some of the negative things that I want to talk about, I had a bad roommate. First time I bought a house, I had a fellow bartender, and we got all fired up. We were going to take the world by storm and be, real estate moguls. So we bought a house together. And from there, it went south, unfortunately. It was one of those things, if you ever had it where you have a roommate and you come rolling home and you're just hoping their car isn't in the driveway or whatever, because it just brings you down a little bit. That was a sorrowful feeling at that time. And a sad state of affairs, actually. I don't have a lot of positive about that, except we did make some money on the house, got out of that one, but it was brutal. And that brings me to another sitcom, more modern, but it's been gone for a while now. If you've all heard of The Big Bang Theory, that's the story of all these brilliant scientists. They're all nerds, and it's really funny, but there's this one head nerd, his name's Sheldon, and he has a roommate agreement, which seems absurd in the show, but actually not that bad of an idea. Of course, his is very thorough and outrageously crazy for the show. But, there is kind of a vetting process, I think, as we've gotten older that we need to have. And that brings us up to the moment where there is this huge, I don't want to call it a movement. What would you call it? I guess you just call it a bunch of old people getting together for all these different reasons, a lot of different reasons. Most of it's financial, because as we retire and get in your 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, you need a little help. A lot of that, even if you own your own home, you can always use a little extra scratch, And then say a lot of other people, they've been married forever and they lose their spouse and they're getting lonely. Or maybe you are just lonely. I know myself, I've lived alone quite a bit after my divorce. And I kind of told myself that I'd never want to have a roommate again, because the thing about living by yourself, which, have any of you done that? Where, everything's up to you. If you leave the dishes dirty in the sink, it's you. There's nothing you could say that bothers you, because you've done it all. And whatever needs to get done, you got to do it. Conversely, if you got a roommate, there is these little molehills that turn into mountains sometimes if you aren't careful and keep the communication open. But then I did end up moving in with a beautiful lady, and we have spent about the last 7 years living together, but we've been on and off as far as our relationship, and now it's off, and basically we've broken up, but we're still roommates. So that's kind of a funky, weird deal of a roommate situation, I guess. Takes all kinds, but we're friends, and we love where we live, and we're in a good positions financially where we're at with this house. So there's all types of roommates, but the key is to find a good roommate. And how do you do that when you're a boomer? Because a lot of us, we've got our ways, right? Some of us are really open, but some aren't. So I want to go over some of the benefits that I looked up and some of the disadvantages. So let's start with disadvantages. First off, they say compatibility issues, right? That makes sense. don't you think? Hey, if you ain't compatible, you ain't compatible. If they're still partying all night and doing drugs and drinking till the wee hours of the morning, I mean, grow up, man. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock. I got to shut it down. And then number 2, you got your privacy concerns, which, yeah, after you get to know each other, the privacy might broaden. But, yeah, everybody has their own way they want to conduct their business, and certain times it's private. You got health considerations. If one of us old geezers starts faltering, then all of a sudden there's a big burden on the other one to help out. And if you're good friends, that's one thing. But if you're just finding a roommate for the sense of some companionship and hopefully making a new friend, but you aren't totally connected, that could be a situation. And then there's, roommates have different standards, and you don't really have control over that. Like if it bugs you that they always want it ice cold at night, they got the air conditioning on full blast or the windows open or whatever the case may be, certain little first world problems that could bother us. And then, of course, say your roommate all of a sudden loses their job, or for some reason they have a financial situation, and then you got some problems there. And obviously the old tried and true risk of conflict is the way they put it here. Yeah, well, you're probably going to have some fights. And so you got to work that out. There's a lot of things that are going to go into this roommate deal. So you might want to do the old Sheldon Big Bang Theory agreement. At least have certain things down. You got to have information, and you got to have communication. Work these things out. And then the last one on the list is social dynamics, they say. And that's the way I read that is like, I'm kind of introverted. And so if you get with somebody that's a super extrovert and always wants to, entertain and whatnot, that might not work out so well. So let's move on to some benefits as you're getting older and you got a spot or you're looking for a spot where you're sharing your living expenses. So, this day and age, most of us know it's a freaking fortune out there to rent or to buy, wherever you're living. It's just damn expensive. So if you share it, that helps. Going to help a lot. A whole bunch is going to help you out. And then companionship. I think that's a big one because unless you're totally happy being isolated, most of us, in different doses, we need that social interaction, that companionship. And even if you want to be alone, you go into your own room, but sometimes it's good to, hash it out, using an old boomer term. Hash it out. You can talk things out, get stuff off your chest. And then safety and security, you might feel a little better having someone with you. The next one, they say shared responsibilities, which, that's part of the old roommate agreement, right? That's where you can run into trouble, too. But it does help, I mean, you're going to make a bigger mess, but you're going to have more hands on deck to clean it. If things break, I might know how to do this. You might know how to do that. So that's all good. Emotional support. And we need that, right? Because, as you know, life has a way of kicking you in the shins, beating you over the head, and it's good to have somebody there. If you got the right roommate, the right person in there, they're going to support you, and you vice versa. If you get a good roommate, man, it can totally enhance your quality of life. So, if you're thinking about doing it, here's some websites that cater to seniors if you're looking for roommates in the United States. First one's called Silver Nest. Clever, huh? Next one's Senior Roommates. Then you got Roommates for Boomers. That's roommates and then the number 4 boomers. Senior Home Shares, and the Golden Girls Network. That was another. Was there any roommates in the Golden Girls? Can't remember. That was a big one, though, because I remember Betty White. Loved her. She was one of my all-time faves. But, yeah, there you go. That's the deal on the roommates for the old folks.